History in Middle-earth is shaped by fragile choices, moments where a single decision changed the fate of nations. Today we ask, what if Gandalf took the One Ring? Our timeline diverges from the original in April of the year 3018 of the Third Age. Gandalf has returned to the Shire after being gone for many years. On the morning of April 13th, Gandalf confirms the terrible truth. The ring left to Frodo by Bilbo Baggins is the One Ring of Sauron. In the original timeline, Frodo offers the ring to Gandalf, and Gandalf refuses, saying, "No! With that power I should have power too great and terrible, and over me the ring would gain a power still greater and more deadly. Do not tempt me, for I do not wish to become like the Dark Lord himself. Yet the way of the ring to my heart is by pity, pity for weakness, and a desire to do good. Do not tempt me. I dare not take it, not even to keep it safe unused. The wish to wield it would be too great." In the original timeline, Gandalf remains true to his words and never takes the One Ring. In this timeline, however, things unfold differently. Here, it is not pity alone that drives Gandalf to take the One Ring, but also the fact that Frodo offers it to him willingly. At this point in history, two individuals have taken the ring by force, one has found it by chance, and to one it was given freely. Gandalf is among the few in Middle-earth who know the full history and fates of the ring-bearers. He understands that when the ring is seized, it swiftly gains power over its bearer and soon takes full control. Yet Gandalf also believes that if the ring were given freely and placed into the hands of one already powerful, that bearer might, for a time, be able to wield it for good. With these thoughts weighing heavily upon him, Gandalf takes the One Ring. Now Gandalf faces a choice, and the timeline divides into two branches. He may claim the ring as his own at once, or he may seek to keep it hidden and untouched, refusing to use it. Today we will look at the first of the two branches, the one where Gandalf seeks to destroy the One Ring. We will call this branch line the Fellowship of Two. In this branch of the timeline, Gandalf follows the very wisdom he spoke to Frodo in the Shire. He knows that no matter how strong his will may be, the ring would eventually gain control over him, regardless of how good his intentions might be. With this understanding, Gandalf follows his own counsel and resolves not to use the ring. Placing the ring in his pocket, Gandalf warns Frodo to remain vigilant, and if he is able to prepare the Shire for defense. In the original timeline, Gandalf does not leave the Shire until late June. Here, however, fearing what might befall the hobbits should he remain, he departs on the very same day the ring is given to him, that being April 13th. Moving swiftly, Gandalf rides to Bree and comes to the Prancing Pony, where he meets Aragorn. Telling him everything, the two decide the best course of action is to ride at once to Rivendell and seek counsel with Elrond and the wise who dwell there. Since the Nazgul will not leave Minas Morgul until late June, Gandalf and Aragorn have no fear of riding openly upon the roads. Because of this, they arrive in Rivendell by the end of April. The Council of Elrond is convened the very next day after their arrival. This is a far earlier than in the original timeline, but Gandalf is desperate to set events in motion. For nearly 15 years he has studied all that he can learn of the ring, and he has already come to his conclusion. This council does not meet to decide what should be done with the ring. That question has already been answered. Instead, the wise gather to determine the best course for Gandalf himself to take on the road to its destruction. This Council of Elrond is far smaller than the one remembered in the original timeline. With Frodo no longer bearing the ring, none of the hobbits are present. Indeed, for the remainder of the war, the hobbits remain in the Shire, living their lives far from the greater struggles of the world. It will be another month before Boromir leaves Gondor in search of Rivendell, and neither Gimli nor Legolas have yet departed from their homelands. Thus the council consists of Elrond, Gandalf, Aragorn, Glorfindel, and the wise elves of Rivendell. Gandalf is firm before the council. The ring cannot be used. It must be destroyed. He declares that he himself will carry it to Mount Doom and see the tasks completed. Elrond offers the aid of any who would go with him, but Gandalf refuses. His plan is to move as swiftly and quietly as possible through the lands towards Mordor, and for that the company must be small. He chooses only Aragorn to accompany him. For the next half a month, Gandalf and Aragorn prepare for their quest. They study maps and ancient charts, weighing every path to determine the safest road. During this time, Aragorn's sword is reforged and given its name once more. At last, on the morning of midsummer, Gandalf and Aragorn depart from Rivendell. As they leave, Elrond gives their small company a name. He names them the Fellowship of Two. In the original timeline, the Fellowship attempts to cross the Redhorn Pass, fearing the Gap of Rohan, which would bring them too close to Isengard after Gandalf learns of Saruman's betrayal. In this timeline, however, the Fellowship of Two knows none of this. Gandalf never meets with Radagast the Brown on the road to Bree, therefore never journeys to Isengard to uncover Saruman's treachery. At this point, all of the wise still believe Saruman to be a friend. Indeed, Elrond encouraged Gandalf and Aragorn to travel to Isengard and seek counsel from Saruman before continuing south. Gandalf, however, does not trust Saruman. Well does he remember the many times Saruman dismissed his warnings as foolishness, only for events to later prove Gandalf right. He also recalls that whenever the One Ring was discussed before the White Council, Saruman insisted that it was lost forever in the sea and could never be found. Now Gandalf begins to wonder whether this certainty was not ignorance, but a clever ploy to keep the council pacified while Saruman searched for the ring himself. And though Gandalf has not once put the ring upon his finger since Frodo gave it to him, it has already begun to grow in power. Even now he can feel it pressing at the fringes of his mind. After sharing these doubts with Aragorn, the two agree upon this course. They will pass through the Gap of Rohan, but they will not stop at Isengard, nor will they make their presence known while they are near. Instead, they travel west along the slopes of the Misty Mountains, keeping far from the main roads. Because of this choice, they never encounter Boromir, who at the very time is riding the roads in search of Rivendell. The Fellowship of Two travels as swiftly as they are able, but because their path lies mostly through the wilds, their progress is slow. It is not until the end of July that they finally reach the Gap of Rohan. As they pass through the gap, they glimpse fires burning at Isengard, though they do not yet understand what they are seeing. As the Fellowship of Two enters western Rohan, they are found by the Nazgul. Having crossed the Anduin during the first assault upon Osgiliath, the Ringwraiths have been scouting Rohan in their search. Drawn towards the One Ring, they fall upon Gandalf and Aragorn with almost no warning. Aragorn, however, hears them before they strike. As the Nazgul ride upon them, he looses his arrows from his bow swiftly, shooting two of their horses out from beneath their riders. As the two Nazgul whose mounts have fallen struggle to their feet, Gandalf attacks. Wielding both his staff and the sword Glamdring, he tears through the armor and raiment of one of the Ringwraiths, leaving it momentarily without form. Turning upon the second, Gandalf causes Glamdring to burst into red flames. With a sweeping stroke, he sets the Nazgul ablaze, and it flees, screaming, into the wilderness. Turning back, Gandalf is met by a terrible sight. Three of the remaining Nazgul are still mounted, circling Aragorn, while two more advance upon the ranger on foot. The last two remain on horseback, now facing the wizard himself. Among those confronting Aragorn, Gandalf recognizes the presence of the Witch King of Angmar. Though he has never faced this Lord of Mordor before, he knows the power that stands before him. Gandalf rushes towards the Nazguls before him, determined to break through and reach Aragorn. As he swings the still flaming Glamdring, the Ringwraiths spur their horses aside, only to wheel about at once, keeping themselves firmly between Gandalf and his companion. Aragorn meets the blade of the first Nazgul with Anduril. The sword shears through the enemy's weapon as if it was nothing, and Aragorn drives the ringwraith back. At once the Witch King advances, wielding a long blade in one hand and a short dagger in the other. Gandalf recognizes the dagger immediately. It is a Morgul blade. Gandalf knows that if the Witch King strikes Aragorn with that blade, there is nothing that can be done for him. Desperately, Gandalf tries to force his way through, but now all 5 mounted Nazgul ride in a tight circle, cutting him off and keeping him away. Aragorn fights desperately to hold both Nazguls at bay, but it is only a matter of time. As Gandalf struggles once more to break through, he sees one of the ringwraiths, not the Witch King, strike Aragorn in the leg. Aragorn drops to one knee. At once the Witch King surges forward, knocking Andúril aside with his long blade. He raises the Morgul dagger high, preparing to strike the killing blow. Gandalf knows with terrible certainty that Aragorn is about to die. With him will die the line of Isildur. Gondor and Arnor will never be restored. There is nothing Gandalf can do. Or is there? In his pocket he carries the one thing that can command the Nazgul, for the one who holds the One Ring is the Lord of the Rings, and even the ringwraiths must bend to that will. Almost without conscious thought, Gandalf reaches into his pocket and puts on the One Ring. At once power surges through him, vast, terrible, and unlike anything he has ever known. With a single command, Gandalf orders the Witch King to stop. The Morgul blade freezes in midair, halted just before it plunged into Aragorn. Gandalf then commands the Nazgul to withdraw several paces, forcing them back and carving out a narrow space in which he and Aragorn can stand. As Aragorn rises and limps towards him, his eyes fall upon the ring on Gandalf's hand. Gandalf tells him there was no other way, that it was the only means by which he could save him. For now, Gandalf says he dares not remove the ring while the Nazgul remain so close. With the ring now upon his hand, Gandalf sees another path towards their goal. No longer must he creep in secrecy towards Mordor. Instead of attempting to sneak into the dark land and destroy the ring, Gandalf now believes the task might be accomplished through strength of arms. Yet before he brings this vision before Aragorn, Gandalf knows he must first learn more of the Dark Lord's designs. Turning his will upon the Nazgul, he questions them and learns their mission, Sauron's plans for Gondor, and the movements of his armies. In doing so, Gandalf also uncovers the treachery of Saruman. Armed with this knowledge, Gandalf lays out a new plan for Aragorn. Aragorn is sent to Lothlorien to inform the Lord and Lady of all of that has transpired. He is tasked with persuading them to bring the full strength of the Galadrim south to Gondor for an assault upon Mordor. Riders are also to be dispatched north, warning King Thranduil, King Dain, and King Brand that an army of Easterlings will soon be marching against their forces. Gandalf, meanwhile, commands the Witch King to return to Minas Morgul and prepare Mordor's forces, while the remaining Nazgul are sent to Dol Guldur to do the same. Gandalf himself will first ride to Fangorn Forest, where he seeks to convince Treebeard of the danger Saruman possesses to the forest. From there he will ride to Rohan to have King Theoden begin mustering the Rohirrim. Finally, he will go to Gondor to prepare the city to receive her king. Aragorn agrees, and the two part ways. Gandalf comes swiftly to Fangorn Forest and is able to convince Treebeard of the danger Saruman possesses. Treebeard calls for an Entmoot, and Gandalf rides towards Edoras. In the original timeline, Gandalf comes to Edoras in late September, when Wormtongue's grip upon the king is strong. Here, Gandalf arrives more than a month early, and Wormtongue's hold is far weaker. Gandalf is able to cast him out with ease and heal the king. Using the power of Narya, the Ring of Fire, Gandalf rekindles Theoden's spirit and restores his strength. As Theoden prepares his people to ride to Gondor, Gandalf sets out for Minas Tirith. In gratitude for his healing, Theoden gifts him Shadowfax. While Gandalf rides south, Aragorn arrives in Lothlorien. There he convinces the Lord and Lady to send their aid, for they say that none of Gandalf's deeds are foolishness. Aragorn does not, however, tell them of Gandalf's use of the One Ring. By the time Gandalf reaches Minas Tirith, Aragorn, Celeborn, and Galadriel are already marching towards Gondor at the head of an elven host. Meanwhile, Treebeard's Entmoot has concluded, and the Ents have agreed to march upon Isengard. The Battle of Isengard unfolds much as it does in the original timeline, but because it takes place nearly 8 months earlier, Saruman has not gathered the strength he later wielded at Helm's Deep. The Ents utterly destroy his forces and seize Isengard, breaking his power completely. When Gandalf arrives in Minas Tirith, he is brought at once before Denethor, steward of Gondor. Denethor questions him about his son Boromir, but at this time Gandalf has no answers to give, for Boromir is still abroad, seeking Rivendell. Gandalf urges the steward to prepare the city for war, to call the princes of Gondor and summon the fiefdoms and make ready for the return of the king. As they speak, Gandalf begins to sense the shadow upon Denethor. Long has he suspected that a Palantiri remained in Minas Tirith, and from what he now knows, he sees with certainty that Denethor has been using it, and that through it Sauron has begun to work upon the steward's mind. Fearing not only for his own safety, but for Aragorn's life, and for the fate of the city should Denethor continue to rule, Gandalf makes the choice once again to use the One Ring. Though he has worn it since the day he first put it on, he has not yet drawn upon its power again, until now. Calling upon both the One Ring and Narya together, Gandalf bends the powers of the Ring of Fire. He twists its gift of rekindling hearts, inflaming Denethor's spirit towards anger and making the steward appear even more unstable than before. At the same time, Gandalf rekindles the hearts of the guards of the citadel, stirring their sense of duty to protect Minas Tirith from all threats, even those that rise from within its own walls. Denethor, however, is not easily deceived. Having spent many years wielding the Palantiri and contending in silent struggle and will with Sauron himself, he senses Gandalf's influence upon his heart. As Denethor is about to speak, his gaze falls upon the ring on Gandalf's hand. Denethor knows of the ancient lore of Gondor well, coupled with the dream his sons once spoke of, Isildur's bane. Denethor understands at once what Gandalf bears. Enraged, Denethor draws his sword and charges at Gandalf. Gandalf had not expected such a reaction from the steward, but it serves his purposes nonetheless. Wielding his sword and the power of his two rings, Gandalf swiftly defeats Denethor and slays him. The guards of the citadel, who witnessed the entire confrontation, quickly spread word that Lord Denethor had gone mad and openly attempted to murder Gandalf, and that Gandalf, who had spoken only in a calm and commanding voice, had no other choice but to strike him down. Gandalf assumes rule of the city until either Faramir returns from the defenses of Osgiliath or Aragorn comes to claim his throne. He orders immediate preparations for war, calling up all the fiefdoms of the southern lands to send their soldiers to Minas Tirith. Because these events unfold nearly 7 months before the Battle of the Pelennor Fields, the courtiers of Umbar are nowhere near ready to sail, and the southern lands of Gondor have no fear of sending their full strength. Within a few days, nearly 40,000 soldiers gather within the city. King Theoden arrives soon after, bringing 12,000 riders of Rohan. Not far behind him comes Aragorn, accompanied by Galadriel and Celeborn and 5,000 elves. With this great host of nearly 60,000 strong, Gandalf and Aragorn set out at last for the Black Gate of Mordor. While the host of the West is gathering, Gandalf remains in secret communication with both the Witch King and Kamaul the Easterling. Through his command, he orders them to march their armies to the Black Gate and turn upon Sauron's forces stationed there. Both ring-wraiths obey. They lead their armies into battle against their former allies. As the clash between these three hosts begin to die down, Gandalf arrives with the hosts of the West. With them he scatters the remaining defenders of the Black Gate and presses onward towards Barad-dûr. Sauron, seeing the hosts of the West advancing and knowing that Gandalf now bears the ring, comes forth to meet him in battle. Wielding Glamdring and the power of his rings, Gandalf engages the Dark Lord. In the terrible struggle that follows, Gandalf gains the upper hand and destroys Sauron so utterly that he can never rise again. As Sauron's armies begin to flee, Galadriel approaches Gandalf, who leans upon his staff, struggling to recover his strength. Only now does she fully realize what Gandalf bears. She asks him if he intends to complete his quest. Gandalf replies, "The ring is mine, and I will allow no harm to come to it. With it I will maintain order in Middle-earth, and justice shall rule." Galadriel, unwilling to see the rise of another Dark Lord, prepares herself for battle. Before she can strike, however, Aragorn steps in between them and refuses to allow her to harm Gandalf. Gandalf has sacrificed too much to keep Aragorn safe, and Aragorn will not see his friend struck down. Moreover, Aragorn's will has already been shaped by the corrupted influence of Narya. He believes Gandalf is right, that with the ring, Middle-earth can be made safe and secure, and that justice can be dealt to those who deserve it. Despite his courage, Aragorn is no match for Galadriel and her ring. Yet the time he buys is enough. Gandalf recovers his strength, rises, and brings an end to Galadriel's resistance. Though both Gandalf and Aragorn feel sorrow for her fall, they convince themselves that she would have stood in the way of order and sought power for herself. Gandalf takes Galadriel's ring and adds it to his own. He then commands the Nazgul to seize Celeborn. Celeborn resists and is slain. To the Galadrim, Aragorn declares that their lord and lady fell bravely in battle against Sauron. The host of the West returns to Gondor, where Boromir, having been found by winged Nazgul, crowns Aragorn king. After Aragorn's coronation, Gandalf departs with a small company of Gondorian soldiers and riders of Rohan, bound for Rivendell. Along the way, they stop at Isengard, where Gandalf deals with Saruman and entrusts Isengard to Treebeard's care until Aragorn decides its fate. Riding swiftly, Gandalf and his company reaches Rivendell, but Elrond is no longer there. Fearing Galadriel's death and Gandalf's claiming of the One Ring, Elrond has departed for the Grey Havens. None of his children go with him. Arwen refuses to leave out of love for Aragorn, and her brothers will not abandon their sister. Gandalf instructs Arwen to ride to Minas Tirith, where Aragorn awaits her. He then turns west in pursuit of Elrond. Gandalf overtakes Elrond outside of Bree. There he tells him that he is free to leave Middle-earth, but only after surrendering Vilya. Elrond refuses, declaring that he will not allow his ring to be used for darkness. They fight, and Gandalf slays Elrond and takes Vilya. With all immediate threats removed, Gandalf returns to Minas Tirith for the wedding of Aragorn and Arwen, telling them only that Elrond has departed Middle-earth. Gandalf gifts Vilya to Aragorn, that Gondor might be rebuilt and strengthened. For a time, Middle-earth flourishes. Sauron is no more, Aragorn and Arwen rule from their thrones, and Gandalf watches over the world. But slowly, things begin to change. In his pursuit of order and justice, Gandalf deals out swift and merciless punishment to those he deems evil. Though the King of the West still rules the land, it becomes clear where the true authority lies. As the years pass, Middle-earth and its people fall ever deeper beneath the shadow of Gandalf and his One Ring.